I feel like diet culture sets you up to never be good enough.
Did you burn 500 calories on the treadmill today? No? Me either.
I mean, anybody can sit with us. We're just really not about diet culture.
But literally, happiness doesn't come from a low-calorie, high-intensity life. I actually do like carrots.
I do too. They're my favorite.
Welcome to the Fit Fueled Free podcast.
So basically, diets suck.
Hey guys, welcome to episode 46. I'm Danielle.
And I'm Jenna.
And today we're going to talk about how to deal with a lack of freshness or newness that you may feel in life when you aren't constantly starting some kind of new weight loss or exercise plan and anticipating the results that follow from that.
Yeah.
So this thought was sparked by something I had seen and how much healing work is not very exciting. And I think as humans, or at least myself, I'm assuming a lot of other people think this way, like we're always waiting for something to like look forward to. Like we have a hard time being still. I don't know if that's more like our culture or human nature, but I think that's part of the allure of diet culture is it's always this like new thing to follow.
Yeah.
So even though it comes with so much disappointment and like hurt and frustration, it can also have this allure that you don't really get with intuitive eating or just mindful eating or coming back to your body, because that's more healing work, which it's great when you have a breakthrough, but it doesn't really feel good when you're doing it. Whereas sticking to some kind of rigid eating plan or like getting through the day and going to sleep with that thought of, oh, like I accomplished this, or like pounding out an insane workout that like is so hard to get through, which not saying that's all bad, but like one that is really not in tune with what you want to be doing. You just feel forced. And then you're like, oh, like I accomplished this thing. And it's like those accomplishments seem for whatever reason easier for us to be proud of ourselves for than when we're giving ourselves grace or we're practicing something, which is a lot of the work of coming back to your body. It's practice, because the thing is, I can't give 5 different people the exact same plan or piece of advice for healing their relationship with food and body and exercise, because it's not a one size fits all like every other like diet plan is for the most part, you know?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So Jenna and I just wanted to talk through some of that and ways that like we stay like motivated to just keep going in that. And I think that kind of breaks some of the barriers of the myths of like what it means to really listen to your body that a lot of people are so concerned about too. So definitely touching on that and just some suggestions and reminders that may be helpful for keeping yourself going when it comes to taking care of your body and like self-care and listening to what you really need.
Mm-hmm.
The I guess part of the allure too is not only about just the day-to-day satisfaction, but you're waiting for certain results, and that's the part that's a little bit tricky to sell, I would say, when it comes to coming back to your body and intuitive eating and mindfulness, because those things aren't a guarantee for manipulating your body. Obviously diets and certain like fitness challenges aren't necessarily a guarantee either, but they're more like connotated with that. So they're more exciting. And the freshness of starting something new always seems to feel really good. And that presents a little bit of a challenge, I think, with the work that we do, because your progress isn't going to look exactly the same as things you've done before, or like what your, Facebook or Instagram friends are doing. And now TikTok, that like diet culture is completely like taken over that platform as well. So there's a lot of comparing. to seeing what others are doing. And that's probably also a good place to remind you that we have no clue what's going on behind the scenes of someone's social media platform. Unless they're literally telling you everything that they're doing all day long, because they're showing you what they want you to see. So like, remember that, because if you're comparing yourself to that, you don't know what they're thinking or feeling that they're not sharing. Because only a very small handful of people actually share like the bad or the like scary stuff along with the like the end product or whatever, you know?
Yeah. And it's unfortunate. It's like we're almost like we're conditioned to want that, because think about it, like all the shows, like whether it's a home makeover show or like one of the shows where it's like a weight loss challenge, it's like a majority of people watch those shows simply because they want to see like the end result. Like they want to see that transformation. Like we're conditioned to think that like that end result is going to be the thing that's like the end all be all. And so like that's why, again, like the diet culture is so alluring with their fitness, like weight loss challenges or nutrition plans, because everywhere we see is like that end result, that transformation. Like that's what so many people strive for.
Yeah, that's a good point. It really is in a lot of areas.
It's everywhere. And I mean, I even touched on this the other week of like why I don't necessarily promote transformation photos, because it's not always a true representation of reality. And I think also like as a culture, a lot of us like want instant gratification.
Oh yeah.
And so a 30-day detox, it's instant within a day. Like you have a timeline where you can see, all right, in 30 days, I will get this thing. So it feels like an instantification. You can put a timeline to it and know that you're going to know, air quotes, because there's no promise, but you're being told that you're going to get this end result at the end of these 30 days. Yeah. Whereas with intuitive eating and working on healing with your body, it's like a lifelong process and lifestyle change, because it's a way of life. It's not just a short fraction of time or a challenge that you're on.
Yeah, exactly. So it does make it almost seems like the not like fun or not like sexy way to go about it. Not even because of the content of the work. It's like just the outer packaging of it and the way you can sell it, because of what we hold so much as our beliefs. Like if we have enough money or thin enough or pretty enough or whatever, just the highest we can go in every aspect. So yeah. So I think, like, I always try and come back to this being empowering information, because typically the things that are the hardest to get through, I'm not saying that I don't like that whole thing, like what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Like, I don't mean that, because there are some really crappy things that we go through that are not, like, no one deserves to have to go through, and I would never wish them on anyone. But what I'm saying is that going on a crash diet to feel better about yourself is very much so a Band-Aid fix, whereas doing some deeper work and coming back to your body for wherever your journey's at. If you're in the thick of a eating disorder, that may not be quite right. You may have to get restored and figure out how to not over-exercise or to even allow yourself to move your body at all. Like, there's so many directions that could go. But whenever you're able to have different areas being touched on as far as exercise and your nutrition and therapy to work on your mind, if it's trauma or anxiety or whatever is going on, just to get through the day-to-day stuff. When you get there and you're doing that deep digging to figure out what is the root cause of why you feel like you have to go on some kind of quick fix, because typically the reason we do those things isn't for general health. it may be part of the reason, but I feel like typically the answers I've ever heard given, it's more about like our bodies and how we appear outside. So like what's going on the inside that's making us like strive for that. And I'm sure sometimes it is the idea of being concerned that our bodies at a certain size are unhealthy because we're told, and that's like air quotes because I don't believe that, but we're told that you are. But I think more times it's about what's going on and not feeling good enough.
Mm-hmm.
So if you get to the root of that, the chances of actually getting what you were looking for, it may not be what you thought originally, but typically that is more fulfilling. So I guess that's what I mean more. And it's not fun to go through that stuff,
Mm-hmm.
but no one deserves to spend their entire life going through fad diets and always, coming back to blaming themselves. So I think it's really important that you focus on your victories. And that can be really hard because when we're working on like giving yourself compassion and coming back to your body, and this concept that yes, we have got the brain nutrition knowledge and exercise knowledge, but we have to listen to our body too, because without that connection of both things, you're not going to go anywhere as far as coming to any kind of sustainable pattern of exercising and eating. And that's a hard idea to grasp if you don't trust yourself or feel good enough in the first place. So it's like, where are you supposed to go with that? And I think every single positive thing that you see deserves to be called out. That's why I'm so big on that in my work. And I think sometimes it might seem like I'm being a little cheerleady or something like that, but I genuinely believe that it's like it needs to be spoken to. Jenna always calls that like speaking life into like, and I think for me, like I think of that as like talking about the positives and the victories and like the true benefit to the things that may seem so horrible and frustrating.
Yeah.
Is that kind of similar to what you mean when you say that?
Yeah, like speak life over it. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And it's hard to do that for yourself sometimes. So if there's anybody supportive in your life, if they say something good to you, like try to believe them that they're being honest and that they're not just saying that stuff. I think a lot of people think I say things because it's my job, but I don't lie. I don't go around lying to my patients. Like I say that stuff because I genuinely believe in the good that they're doing for themselves.
Yeah.
And so but it's hard when you're receiving that, especially if you've had maybe a negative relationship with a provider or with someone in a supporting role, and they may have not been fully honest with you, or you have an issue trusting. But I think if there is someone you trust who is on your side, let them talk about your victories. And it's okay to brag on yourself, like, and be proud of yourself, because I think that's extremely important. It's like the day-to-day stuff that helps you see the bigger picture, because we have no ability to see a bigger picture until we're like, way down the road.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to highlight that. And I think that's probably like the biggest thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not going to be necessarily about losing inches or losing weight or anything like that, but usually higher confidence still comes, getting stronger if it's about exercise, being more satisfied, which is so huge, and not like a moral failing like we like to talk about it being. Those are probably the three things that you're gonna like almost immediately start to see happening for yourself. And that's a wonderful thing. It's just not going to have the same look necessarily as some of the other approaches that aren't like sustainable for you and are harmful and disordered.
Yeah. And I think you have to, like, I think what sometimes keeps a lot of people from celebrating those small victories is the fact that they feel like shame almost, because it feels like maybe conceited or like prideful to like cheer yourself on. Cause again, like I keep referring back to like our society, but I do feel like it's cultivated this culture of like, you have to like the diet culture profits off of like shame and like you being hard on yourself and like picking yourself apart. And so for you to like actively and consciously fight that and be like, no, I'm actually going to like be proud of myself and like speak life over myself, it's seen almost negatively, or it's almost like, oh, you're not allowed to like be proud of yourself. You're not allowed to like be confident or like brag about these victories you're having, because we feel ashamed and we feel like, oh, I like must be doing something wrong if I'm taking pride in this victory that I've had, because
yeah, you're right.
Makes sense.
And I think women in general have been groomed in society in a lot of ways to be, you know, be not heard, which, hello, diet culture. Like, if our looks are valued more than our brains, obviously that's going to be problematic as that gets passed down, you know, through generations. And just like the different like power dynamics and in the workplace, even in relationships with a male and female, that can be that way too. So I definitely agree with you on that. Like, we're supposed to be confident but not cocky, and it's like, that is like a freaking, that makes my head spin. Like,
yeah,
how are you supposed to feel good about yourself and express that, without having somebody over there start talking crap about you because you're feeling good about yourself? Like, it's almost like you have to, if you were to post a picture of yourself on social media for no purpose other than just to like show yourself off or be like, hey, this is me, I feel good, I feel pretty today, it's almost like you would be attacked for that. And it's just, I mean, you know, there's a whole nother tangent we could get into with that, but I think that sucks, because then if someone posts something and they're like, oh, like, I was feeling really insecure, but I posted this picture today, then all of a sudden you're getting applauded. But if you just, you know, represent yourself because you are you and you're trying to be okay with that, and you don't say anything derogatory about yourself, then suddenly people are like, or if you're a celebrity, then you can say whatever you want about yourself, because people are obsessed with like having access to all of their every single day. But if you're a regular person and you do that, then you're either going to be thought to be like, you think too highly of yourself, or you have absolutely no self-esteem. It's like, you can't be
in the middle.
Nothing's acceptable. So, and not that everything comes back to social media, but I feel like that is such a big way that we represent ourselves in putting ourselves out there. To our friends and like family and just, you know, anybody who follows us. But yeah, even like if you go somewhere and wear an outfit that you feel confident in, I mean, there's all kinds of things people could say about how you dress, or like, and that becomes a whole nother issue. So it is tough. And when it comes to our hearts and like being, like doing good things for ourselves, I think that's even harder to talk about than the outward stuff, because it's uncomfortable. And a lot of people don't even want to like admit that they even have similar struggles. There was a story in that Shame book by Brene Brown that I've been talking about, where this woman made friends with a lady, and she had some messy stuff going on in her life, and I mean real life stuff, no out of the ordinary of, you know, any family, but she was not, you know, pleased with it or felt kind of embarrassed by it, and she was trying to have a conversation about it with another group of women, and this friend shut her down, thinking, oh, you can't talk about this with this group of people. But then the, like, you know, the boss queen of this group was like, oh, like, I actually had a similar situation. And so then this friend was like, oh, like, she got so upset because she thought she had to pretend not to be herself to get this group of women to like her. And suddenly this new person who wants to talk about real life stuff is bonding. And she like, it broke her because she was so ashamed of things in her own life that later came out that she was trying so hard to shove down that it made her act cruel and had no empathy and just not want to talk about anything other than like fashion and diets and rich house stuff. Like she had no depth to her on the outside because she was trying to push all of that down. So yeah, it does make it really tough, but I think that's where we have to come back to our intentions with it, and with finding anybody in your life that can support you in a positive way for that stuff. Like they should know that. Like any of my friends that I share something awesome that I did or that happened are gonna cheer me on, because I purposely don't like have people who I can't say that stuff with and then they're just like, oh, why are you telling me that? Or like, okay, like, you know.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't be just like a random acquaintance that you would necessarily want to share this stuff with, but like maybe start with someone you can trust. Or if you do want to like blog about it or put it on paper, you don't have to post any of it. Like you can just write these things to yourself to start getting comfortable with the ideas and like those affirmations and journaling about it, but just anything good that's going on to kind of shift that needle to like a more positive direction.
Yeah.
And that always stays fresh because anytime something good happens, it feels good.
Yeah. Right.
And we can be, I'm not saying there aren't going to be stretches of times where it seems like nothing good ever happens. And there's definitely some situations that we go through and times in our life that are absolutely horrible. And I'm not dismissing or diminishing any of that, but just specific to the work that you've got going on, trying to highlight some of that stuff. And if you ever have to take a break with it because there are more pressing like life matters or something that you just can't make, you know, we can't have every single thing in our life be a priority. If you have to take a pause on some of this stuff, like giving yourself that grace too, rather than being like, oh, like I fell off the wagon because now I have to take care of my sick parent who we're not putting in a nursing home. I have to take care of this person now that all of a sudden I didn't have as a responsibility. Like, no, you didn't fall off the wagon. You just don't have the time to work out 7 hours a week anymore because you have to like do this. So it's not about making an excuse as much as it is like giving yourself like a reality check. Like you're not a lost cause. Like it's just that idea that you had of what it was supposed to look like is not what it's going to be. So we have to like grieve that. And then that's like another thing that doesn't seem as exciting about coming back to our bodies and listening to what we need and true self-care. Because then it's like, oh, well, whoever over here is doing this, this, and this, and I can't even get myself to go for a walk. But it's more like the shame that we feel and the frustrations and that negative emotion that keeps us down than if we could just try and be kinder. So I think it kind of hits a bunch of different nails
Agree.
with why that matters so much.
Do you want to share how you keep things like fresh and exciting in terms of like nutrition?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that would be helpful.
So these are things that like I personally do for myself and my husband, but also that I like encourage others to do because I find them to be really helpful. So incorporating new recipes I think is huge because part of like if you just had to say like list an example of a healthy meal, I feel like 90% of people would say like some kind of like plain grilled chicken breast over salad or with like a bunch of green vegetables and maybe possibly a carb, but it would have to be like a complex carb, probably no oils or minimal oil. And that's like ugh, like we need some flavor. We need something that's
Variety.
satisfying. We need, variety. And so if we're putting ourselves in that box to be healthy, quote unquote, then we're probably going to get frustrated and end up getting takeout, which is that, I mean, that's my personal experience. And like the whole idea of dieting leading to like restriction leading to binges, it's because it's not enough food and it's not enjoyable food, and then you go eat the things you actually want to eat. But if you can allow yourself to try new flavors and foods you actually enjoy, it doesn't mean that they have to be like you taking in more calories than you need necessarily or anything like that. It's just you're enjoying the food and you're getting that variety and the satiety. So I make a goal to try at least one new recipe a week. I just consult Pinterest, or I actually have a good amount of cookbooks because I like books, and just find something, even if I don't stick to the full recipe, just a new idea, some kind of new flavor profile. Because like you have to keep things new and exciting, I think, with everything to feel like we do crave that. And I don't know, like as far as mindfulness goes, or like someone, you know, who's much older and has more wisdom, maybe they would say that's not the right thing, but I think that it is important. And it's okay to be excited about stuff, and newness does feel good. So when you can add variety of nutrients and taste to your week with nutrition, like I think that's a pretty sweet win. So I definitely encourage that. I know that can be tough if you have picky eaters at home. So I would say if you're trying something like real out of the box of what you would normally do, maybe have something like a frozen pizza or something, like whatever your go-to backup is that can just stick in the freezer for a good bit of time. I think it's good for all of us to have those kinds of things for emergency situations. Or if you just want them there, but to have that to fall back on if you get into it and you're like, oh, this isn't for me, because sometimes you're going to have recipes that they don't come out edible or come out right, but that's probably worst case scenario. But that way you don't end up in like a frustrating situation. Like you can have a backup, or if there's someone who doesn't like it, because there's some things I've made and Matt wasn't interested, and so I had to eat it, and then he had to find something else to eat. So just kind of thinking about a backup too, because that way you don't have to have that worry if you are in a household who has a more refined palate, if you will, or have little ones at home. All right. And I would say, unless you have like a health reason where you have to eliminate an ingredient for an allergy, an autoimmune condition, if you're watching your blood sugar because of diabetes, like if you have to legitimately consider that, otherwise try not to alter it just because you're worried about it being too many calories. Like let yourself enjoy that food and try it in the full context of what it is, because that is okay to do.
And it challenges that fear you have with it.
Yeah.
You can prove to yourself that you can have it and you're fine. And then, because sometimes people stay away from foods because they're like, oh, if I even allow myself this, I won't be able to stop. But it's like you feel that way because you've restricted it for so long. But that goes back to the whole like restrict binge cycle. Like if you just allow yourself to have it, then it like triggers in your brain that like it's there. You can truly have it whenever you want, but you don't need to have it all the time because you know that it's always like accessible, and you're gonna be okay if you like allow yourself to consume it.
And it's not always this easy, but I have literally worked with so many people who just said those words to themselves, I'm allowed to eat or drink X, Y, and Z. And then they suddenly were like, oh, that doesn't even taste what I thought it tasted like, because it was complete psychological warfare that we created because of diet culture's rules that led to that fear. So it's not always that simple. Obviously there can be with an eating disorder, much more extreme fear, or just if you've had, you know, your whole entire life, you've been doing that, it might take you some time, but sometimes it's literally immediate, which is so telling of why it's important. So I love that you said that, because it does kind of add an additional reminder, like you can eat that. And then that brings more confidence and peace when you're not in control. Like if you're at a restaurant or you're at a friend's house, then you don't have to stress out because you can't control the food as much. You can start practicing that on your own. So that's something I do literally with anybody who's working on healing their relationship with food, is encourage them to eat that. But I think if you're listening to this podcast, that probably applies to you as well.
Yeah.
So you should eat the recipe that you want to have in its full capacity. Let's see. So I actually really like going grocery shopping outside of quarantine. I know I talk about grocery shopping a lot because I think it's fun to like get new things sometimes, or just to like look at what's out there. And I know how terrifying grocery stores can be just in general, and when you're concerned about the calories or like overwhelmed with ingredients or reading labels, absolutely. So I know some people don't like it, even if that isn't a concern. But trying to make it something fun or positive, if you can at all. We're not all going to have that luxury. I know, like, if you have to take little kids to the grocery store, it's probably going to be a little bit different than me getting to go by myself as an adult. But just trying to add something positive to that experience. Like if you are financially able to do so, like, you know, occasionally picking yourself up a bouquet of flowers. And then this trip to the grocery store has become like an extra little self-care thing to give yourself that something from outside to bring into your house and, you know, make that room more special or something like that. Like it doesn't have to be about spending money per se. It can even be like I've talked about trying to stick yourself to a budget, and that becomes a game. Like you can make it kind of silly like that. Or sometimes my husband and I have like done races where we were like, okay, we're going to get in and out of here in 20 minutes because like we have other things we want to do, and just trying to make it something that's just a little bit more lighthearted. I know that sounds kind of silly, but it has made a big difference for me because I am very prone to high anxiety, and sometimes, like right now with quarantine, it's really stressful. But I think if I get too much in my head about various different things, I can get really frustrated, and just shopping in public can be so like exhausting. And especially when it comes to something that may be triggering for you at all. Like with food, just trying to do something distracting or positive or fun for yourself can keep things, because you have to go to the store, like, or you can do online pickup. Like you have to have groceries in your house in order to be able to feed yourself adequately, to be able to take care of yourself. So like just trying to add something that makes it, or, you know, you could pop one headphone, and I never would encourage anyone to walk around in public with two earphones in, just for safety and like being aware of your surroundings. But like you can listen to your own music if that feels good, or a podcast, like as long as you're able to still like connect with reality at the store or wherever you are, you know, that could be another one that could help, because that can be a little bit more calming and centering and fun than just the mundaneness of shopping.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any things like that you do? Or
yeah, sometimes I'll give myself a time and I'll like race myself, because usually Landon will occasionally go with me to the store. We hate grocery shopping, so it's like really a lose-lose.
Okay.
But yeah, I'm like competitive with myself, so I'm like, all right, Jenna, you have X amount of time to get in and get out. And that just kind of gives me like a little bit of like an umph to be like, all right, like, got to get this done, and we got to do it quick. Yeah. Or sometimes I'll like call, like catch up with someone when I'm grocery shopping, but it has to be like, it can't be if I'm doing my big haul, because it's hard to like multitask. Like I'll get overwhelmed. Like I'll be taught, like if it's my mom, I'll have like 2 things in my hands and I'm like trying to decide, but holding a conversation, and I'm like, okay, hold on, mom. Like, so I think like, yeah, like FaceTiming, or, well, that's probably dangerous, like push a cart, but like if you can like call someone and have it, if it's like a casual conversation, that can be a way to make it a little bit more enjoyable, to just have someone to like talk to, or even like invite a friend. I don't know, like, hey, I'm gonna go grocery shopping, you want to get your groceries with me, or something like that.
Yeah, that I've done that before, actually. I find that very fun because I always want to be with people.
Yeah.
I've done the grocery shopping by myself lately just because of the circumstances. It's just easier with my schedule, but I like going shopping with him, because I don't know, it seems more fun when it's an activity with someone else.
Yeah.
If any moms with younger kids out there are listening, I would love if you would like shoot us an email or like a DM on some of your suggestions for like entertaining kids in the grocery store, like how you do that, because that's not like a lived experience I've had, so I can't really speak to that firsthand, but I think that's definitely like a big barrier, I'm sure, to it being something to look forward to as much. So like I would love to hear some of your like tips and tricks, and if you are struggling with an eating disorder and like feeling really stuck with looking at labels and things, I would really recommend trying to have your list like concretely finished before you go in there, and just trying as best as you can to just stick to that, and not because like I'm afraid you're going to pick up something and binge on it on the way home. That's not my fear, but to keep you just like occupied, do that, and then do something for yourself that is, you know, not as overwhelming, because it can be a very like daunting and anxiety provoking process, when every single item you're picking up is telling you things about nutrition when you're battling that. So I think trying to get it done, and then some distraction can be positive when you're in that worst place, but then as you start to challenge yourself to try new things, it may become a little bit more fun in that regard. But I think just trying to go with your gut rather than reading strictly through labels, unless again you have a health reason you have to do that, is probably in your best interest. Which is probably like not popular advice from a dietitian, but if you want something anyway, like if you're just trying something for the sake of it, it's not something you're eating every single day either. Like if you're just trying a fun product. So I think I've shared, like one time I picked up some pimento cheese that had high fructose corn syrup in it, and I was really irritated by that because that's not an ingredient that I like want to consume all day long, but it's also in so few products that I'm eating for things that fuel my body and make me feel good. So I was like, that's so stupid. Like, I'm not going to throw this in the trash. I would have in the past, like 100%.
Wow.
If it bothered me, or I would have just let Matt eat it. But just trying to rationalize through that. If there's something you're interested in, but then you flip it over and it's an ingredient that you're afraid of, but don't have like a legitimate reason to be afraid of eating it, like especially just in an isolated period, then I would try to not even look at the ingredients if you don't have to, because it's not going to matter in a week from now, to be honest, to you at all. So just trying to like go get in and get out is probably the better thing if you're feeling high anxiety around that. Okay. So something that I have been doing a lot more of lately, because I've been stuck at home more, as you know, everyone else in the world, is trying to make our eating or dining experience like more fun. So like I've changed out the centerpiece on the table a couple different times, just ran like different things I've got around. Like I turned a seltzer bottle into a vase and dug out some flowers from my wedding, the fake flowers, and put that out, and I really liked it. And I just was like trying to put something new together to have a some scenery, because everything is just so
the same.
You're staring at everything the same. Yeah.
Yep.
Like it's literally everything is just the same all the time. So just trying to create some newness and freshness there has been helpful, because I think part of being able to enjoy your meals as well and have that experience is having like as calm as possible of a surrounding, so that you can enjoy your meal. And for me, I'm very much an aesthetic person. So like adding a new like little place setting for me is like, it makes me feel kind of chill because I'm like, oh, this is cute. Like I like that. And I think visual is a big part of eating in general. So even just like taking the time to plate something nicely, if it takes, it only takes like 10, 15 more seconds to do that. So just, presenting yourself something nice can feel a little bit better. I also like to put on a good playlist. And I've been experimenting with a lot of mocktails since I'm not drinking alcohol right now. So things like that, just to add a little bit of pizzazz or flair. Even like having some fresh herbs, which if you're in a warmer climate, like we're entering now in Virginia, into that season, like you can grow those things even in your windowsill and just add some good flavor and freshness to food. And it's super low cost if you're able to grow it.
Yeah, like with a couple of my girlfriends the other week, I think you have this on our notes, like we did like a Zoom call where we like all, like one of my friend who's like a chef guru, like created the recipe and sent everything that like we would need to do at the like get at the store in order to like make the meal. And we like all went out, got the rest, like got the ingredients, and then on a Friday when we like had our Zoom call, we like it was like she was like walking us through the process of how to like make the meal, and then like we were all done at the same time. We didn't eat it together because some of us like had spouses and whatnot that we like also cooked for, but that was like I didn't know how I was gonna like that because I was like, oh man, like cooking is not my favorite thing, but to do it with like people that you love and to like, it was like a cooking class almost, and then you can like put in the work and see like the outcome.
That's awesome.
It's a lot of fun, and it like gave me now like a new recipe to like add in my rotation of things that I can try and do like for us at home.
Yeah, I think that's like the connectedness somewhat that are a little bit outside the box of what we were doing prior to COVID are definitely things that I would want to keep doing. I made brunch, me and Matt made brunch with my friend Maggie in Germany and her boyfriend on Sunday, and we both just cooked the same recipe and like chatted while we were doing it, and then sat down and had our meal together. And obviously we can't ever hang out anymore when she lives in Germany unless one of us travels. So that was just like, I don't know why we hadn't thought of this, but some of the connectedness through Zoom with people you can't see a lot has been kind of nice. Even though like we were talking about, it's annoying to stare at screens all the time, certain situations like that can bring a lot more like joy and just get you through that experience with a lot more positive feeling than, oh, now I have to like do this task and then I have to do the dishes and it's boring and it's blah, blah, blah. Like I've never been someone who loved cooking, but I know that if I put on a good playlist and like dance around my kitchen, and I like take moments to just like sit there and like the smell of garlic and onions cooking in a pot is like so delicious. And if you just take a second to just be present and absorb what's going on around you, or even like, I know this sounds so silly, but just like listening to like the sounds it makes when you're like chopping up a carrot or something, but just being present, it kind of like, it eliminates that like dreadfulness of the chore because you're not thinking about the negative crap when you're coming back to the present moment and just focusing on the task at hand. And it always feels better to just do it. If you have any inclination that you want to, like, it always feels better afterwards. And something too is try not to be starving when you go into a meal, not because I'm worried you're going to overeat, but because like the hungrier you get, especially it seems like women, the more our mood is likely to decline. And then we're less likely to want to do something productive for ourselves because we're starting to like blood sugar's dropping, you're just feeling like crap. So like if you eat adequately throughout the day, you are likely to have better energy and like mental ability in like normal times. I know right now everything is like a roller coaster, but you're more likely to like be able to get through that process.
Yeah.
And trying new recipes always helps too, because that can be just like more exciting than cooking the same old thing over and over.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you don't have to make like elaborate meals either. Like there are a lot of quick throw together things that you can do that don't take up a ton of time and can be still very nourishing and enjoyable. Okay, so I think my last thing regarding nutrition and keeping things interesting is doing a little bit of a self-check. Like, am I eating enough regularly throughout the day? Am I drinking water? Like, or am I like hours into the day, I'm like, oh my gosh, like I could chug a lot of fluids. Is there something I want to incorporate or I keep thinking about that I don't have or that I'm not allowing? And like, why is that? Or can I procure that thing? If you suddenly think back and you haven't eaten a vegetable in 3 days, like, you know, maybe that would be something to set an intention for. Or if it's that you haven't been eating very many proteins because, you know, you're not cooking, you're just doing throw together things or whatever it is. If there's anything you can see, and not to be like, oh man, I suck, I'm not doing this, but just if you know that you have any possibility of like feeling better energy, better satiety, what have you, to try and set that as an intention to come back to work on. And that, in a sense, like having that small goal to set for self-care is it is like something, it can be exciting. That might sound silly, but I think when we set those goals for ourselves, it gives that feeling that going on a crash diet can, but it's actually like serving you and it's experimenting. So there's no like harsh consequences regardless of if you succeed or fail, but you can only possibly like benefit from it.
Yeah. And it can be such a great way to like cultivate that intuition with yourself as well. Cause I've shared, like I had to do that for a while when I was doing this whole intuitive eating thing. Cause I was so used to like knowing exactly how many calories to eat to fall under the realms of the rules of diet culture. So forcing myself more in order to like really fuel I didn't know how to do that. So I had to like literally write down, check in, like, okay, this is what I've eaten today. Like, how am I actually feeling? And I think the reason break away from the rules of diet cultures because they don't trust their bodies to like tell them, you know, what to eat, when to eat, or they're scared of maybe overeating or whatever it is. But like, although this might feel a chore and may feel like, I don't necessarily know if it really feels like it's like sticking to rules, but it sometimes in order to like get the end result that you want, you have to be willing to put in like the harder, more like frustrating work at first in order to cultivate that intuition with yourself because you've been so far removed from it for so long. But it can be like a great and useful tool to kind of bring yourself back to your body. So then that way you can continue to like move towards keeping things like exciting and fresh because like you have this intuition with your body and you know like the realm of like, okay, like we can add some fun things in now because like I know that I'm adequately fueling and checking in with myself to see where I'm at.
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of like a building block of like nutrition insurance, and then you can start to do some of that stuff once you get that like baseline stuff going for you. And on the topic of like coming back to your body, that had me thinking about when we're seeking these experiences and we're like, like I feel stagnant, or I feel like I'm not doing enough, or I'm not seeing enough results. It's like coming back to like, what are you seeking out of that micromanaging?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what are you feeling that is going to be better if you suddenly ate 5 servings of vegetables a day? Like, I'm not saying that nothing good could come from that, but like there's typically, again, like something connected underlying that's going on. And oftentimes when we get into a situation where we don't have as much control over something as we had before, that's where like disordered behaviors often come from, because it's easy to do, in the sense of like, you are the one that puts food in your mouth for most of us, so you can decide what goes in it, and you're the one that's moving your body, so like you can decide how you're going to move it, right? So it's very easy to start micromanaging it. And in our society that says like you're a better person if you do these certain things, it can be easy to want to do that. And whether or not it's beneficial to eat multiple servings of vegetables, it's the intention behind it that drives whether or not it's going to be productive or healing or good for you. So it's just like, I think questioning that can be a good reminder. And there's been so many times working on intuitive eating with someone, or just like trying to get through some recovery work, and you feel like, I hear expressions of wanting to quit or like go back to doing something. And I think that's super normal and expected, but that's like, why? What are you looking for? What is that going to do for you? And really just questioning that, it clears it up pretty quickly usually. And even if it doesn't resolve that discomfort, you can at least know, like, I have to sit through this, but I'm going to still be able to move forward in what I know is actually helping myself. Mm-hmm. So I think it's really important to try and come back to your whys and like what's really going on there.
Yeah, I agree.
Like with bathing suit season, especially, I feel like we get very driven to do drastic things, but is looking as thin as possible in a bathing suit actually gonna do any kind of positive change for yourself? Like, I doubt it. It's probably like feeling more confident in your body is positive, but you don't have to shrink yourself in order to do that. Society says so, but we know that that is false. And so it's like, what are you actually seeking? In that sense too. Kind of helped me to think of a good way to put that into perspective.
Yeah.
I always have had a tough time during summer, like worrying about how I'm going to look in a bathing suit. And it is very anxious time. And the other day when I set up my mini dip pool, I have this pair of bottoms that they don't like fit my body the best. Like, I've realized there's certain different types of bathing suits that are more comfortable, and I feel like look better on me. And this particular pair are not that, but I had spent more money on them than I would care to just give away. So sometimes I wear them anyway, but I just wore them in the backyard, and I just was like touching like my butt and my thighs and like my stomach, but not in like a body check way, but just like an observation. Like, this bathing suit does not make me feel the best, but I know if I put this other one on that I would be like, ooh, like I feel good. So it's like, it's just the piece of clothing. There's nothing wrong with my body. And so just like purposely touching myself and just being like, hey, like these are the same legs that they would be if you had this bathing suit that you like on yourself better, but nothing about you is better or worse or changes. And I think it's so easy to feel that way when we're trying on things, especially in the summer.
Absolutely.
So just trying to, if you can rationalize that, I actually liked that experience. And I think that's like, I did that on purpose. Like I put that bathing suit on purpose because I was like, you know, I'm not going anywhere, and I'm going to like see how I can use this self-talk, and like, if even just looking in the mirror, if I would think differently because of all the mental work I've done over the past several years. Like I just kind of wanted to experiment with it.
Yeah.
And you know, it fits my body the same because my body is the same, but it's more about like how you're talking to yourself, I think. And there's nothing wrong with me wearing a bathing suit I like more than that one. It's just that like I like it, I just don't like the way it looks on me as much. So it's kind of like I was trying to just experience that, and realize I don't have to have this like perfect look to be good enough.
Yeah.
And I know that rationally, but sometimes I can say things, but sometimes deep down we feel kind of crappy about it. I think that's normal and natural. And you have to continue like doing that work and the positive self-talk. But yeah, that was just a little anecdote for you on my first bathing suit experience of the season. And I would encourage you to wear things that you feel good in, but that was just kind of like, I just wanted to do that for myself because it mattered to me to like disprove to myself that I don't deserve to have like a crappy day because I don't feel good in my bathing suit.
I love that.
Because it doesn't actually matter. So
yeah, I'm so glad you shared that.
Thanks.
Want me to chat about exercise a little bit?
Yeah, that would be great. So I think it's pretty much my hour-long rant on the nutrition side.
I think the nutrition pertains to this like more.
I do too.
So I think it's good that you shared a majority of that. I think in terms of like exercise, you know, along with this idea of like how to deal with like the lack of freshness, if you're like not using nutrition and exercise in a way to like simply restrict and manipulate your body. This may sound a little bit counterintuitive, but hear me out. I think that consistency is actually key. And I don't mean in the sense of like consistency of being like, oh, all right, well, I have to be consistent every day and I have to show up and like push myself to the ground and like work my butt off like an hour and 2 hours every single day to be consistent. I just mean like, I think the diet culture, like how we were talking about, there's like quick fixes with diets and like the detoxes. Like there's so many people in the fitness industry who are like, here's my quick fix workout plan, or like 12 days to a flat stomach, or like whatever it is. And I want to, you know, warn you to like be very careful when you see people with those wordings and you're tempted to buy into those plans, because one, they are probably very wrapped up in diet culture and are going to lead you down a path that's going to be more destructive and harmful for you in the long run. And that's probably going to leave you even more frustrated when you finish it, because whether or not you get those results that it's promising, the fact that you got those results in such a short amount of time means that it's not going to be sustainable, because you can't like a 12-day to a flat stomach, like that's just not realistic scientifically and at a cellular level for your body. It's just not going to happen. And so I think I know when I'm saying like be consistent, I just mean like find something that works for you and like stick with it. I know it's so easy to like be like, oh, well, you know, I'm 1 week into this plan and I'm not seeing changes. Okay, well, if that's the only reason for you doing that plan, then the intention behind it, you may need to check the intention on your part behind it. And again, like if that's the only reason you're working, like I'm not here to shame you for that. But like if you're listening to this podcast, you're probably trying to find a little bit more of a middle ground and balance and enjoyment through nutrition and exercise. So that's why I'm saying that. But I think it's easy when your intention is to want to simply get results, you're going to jump on to every bandwagon because, oh, okay, this trainer like she looks like this, and like all of her people who do her workouts look like this, so I'm going to hop on this. And then if you don't see results, okay, oh, well, let me try out this one. And that can get exhausting and discouraging in itself. So I think you first have to go back to like, okay, what's my motive behind working out in the first place? And if you truly want to find something that's going to be a lifestyle and long-term for you, you're going to have to reevaluate that motive. And so consistency in the sense of picking something that's going to be maintainable for you to keep it at a lifestyle pace, and something that you can incorporate essentially for your, like, for a lifetime. And granted, that's going to change, like movement is going to change depending on what phase of life you're in, what you're going through. Like if you just had a baby, your workout regimen is probably going to be a little bit different from what it was before you got pregnant, you know, like I think it's having the freedom and giving yourself the grace to like adapt and change to what your body and what your life is currently walking through. But finding something that you can adhere to and like stick to is actually going to be more beneficial for you in the long plan or in the long run, because it's like creating adherence on your part. And it's proving that like you can be consistent with something because it fits into your lifestyle and you enjoy it. Like I think finding something that you enjoy as well is super crucial. And I get it, like you're not always going to want to work out. Like it's not always going to be super fun.
Right.
You know, like
just like cooking isn't always fun, or going to the grocery store isn't always fun.
Yeah. But like we know like that moving your body in some way and form is good for all of us. Like that's known information. And so I think just like experimenting with what you enjoy and trying to figure out like what your body feels good doing, and then just kind of like sticking with that is going to be super helpful. And then obviously like throwing in like trying new things, of course. Like I'm not saying don't try a new thing or don't try a new plan, but also don't stick with something long term just because you think it's what you need to do or it's what you should be doing. Like if you're not enjoying it, that's going to create a lack of adherence, and then you're going to hate moving your body, and that's not going to be good for anybody, you know? So I think finding things that feels good, finding what you enjoy, and then also whether it's every week, like, and I'm not saying like throw in a new form of movement by like try out a new workout class every week, because not everyone can afford trying out a new studio, but whether that's like, all right, today I'm gonna like join, especially now there's so many people like doing live workouts on Instagram. Like, okay, I'm gonna try out this trainer's like live workout and see what it's like. Or I'm gonna look up like a yoga video on YouTube, or like, I mean, there's so many things that you could try that are new. Like you could learn a TikTok dance. Like you could just turn some music on and dance. Like
yeah.
I think
walking also is a form of exercise and movement that counts.
Mm-hmm. I'm glad. Yeah, 100%. Walking is so underrated, and it's so good for you. So yeah, simply like walking with a friend, walking your dog, just going for a walk in your neighborhood by yourself. Yeah, that counts. Like there's no scale of like what's counted as good enough workout versus like what's not. Like you can't really fail at it at all.
Especially if you're in a place at all where it's not productive for you to be doing anything more intense, or you're taking like a rest week and you just want some kind of like active recovery. Is that like the right you would word that as active recovery? Or you just need some fresh air, or you're trying to do some mindfulness, which is a really great way to do that with mindful walking. Or you have some joint pain and that's like you can't run but you can walk. Like there's so many reasons why walking is like, obviously we have to do it to get from point A to point B if we are able and have legs that can do that for us. And so the fact that we just are like, oh well, that's not good enough, it's like, but it's movement. You can feel it. Like you can feel it in different parts, especially if you're not just on flat land, like you can feel your muscles working, like it's real.
Yeah.
100%. So don't ever let anyone tell you that walking is not good enough. That's so frustrating.
Yeah, I agree. Yep. So yeah, I just think the main thing is just like stop relying on the quick fixes. You have to break away from that, because that's exactly what they are. It's a quick fix. You're usually left in a worse spot than you were beforehand at the end of it. And you have to find something that you look forward to in general, and something that like you can fit into your lifestyle, fit into your routine, whether it's, kids, your job. Not something, it shouldn't be something that feels like another chore. Like, granted, again, like, yes, you may not always look forward to it, but like something that is generally going to like add something to your life, as opposed to take away and make it feel like it's a burden or it's something that you should be doing, as opposed to something that you want to be doing.
Absolutely.
So yeah.
So basically the moral of the story is be nice to yourself.
Yeah. Yes. 100%.
In every aspect of what we've talked about today.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that you want to add on this topic?
I don't think so. I think we about covered it.
Me too. All right. Well, thank you guys so much for listening. As always, we would love for you to give us a rating and review and subscribe on iTunes. It helps us to reach more listeners. And if you want to keep up with what we've got going on, you can follow us at our joint Instagram account if you don't already, at Fit Fueled Free. And my personal page is DMarliaL, and Jenna's is Jen at Fit. And we also have our Gmail account, fitfueledfree@gmail.com, for any questions, comments, concerns. And like I said earlier, if there's any tips or suggestions that you have that you think anyone else could benefit from, that Jenna and I don't have the experience of or haven't worked with yet, a certain population or lived experience, we would love that feedback, because we're always learning and growing, and we're having these conversations to help others. So that is always super encouraged and appropriate. So yeah, have a great rest of your day, and we will talk to you next week.
Bye, guys.